don't, then what I'm saying is, if we leave Morrow, or Butlerville and Elementary, and Mainville open, it's a stepping stone.
But we don't need it.
Sure we do.
Well, what we would have to look at would be an extended lease in that facility for the immediate, till we get to the second
Right.
phase, and then.
Because that's 4 years down the road,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So my point being is there a way, now you had a comment, I don't want to get past it, go ahead, you had a comment, go ahead.
So I'm looking at the numbers. I believe Christie told us to keep Salem online was about 6.4 million.
6.8, yeah.
If I take that 6.8 million and take it out of the 64.9 and then divide by the 265, I'm left with about 35,000 square feet that we need to take away to get money for Salem.
Okay.
If we use that 35,000 square feet, it looks like losing it on this addition to this building. Could we then put the pre-KK in Mainville?
Not
And lose the
handicap
addition on this
accessible
building?
enough,
No.
No.
enough.
You got all sorts of
Just-
handicap accessibility issues there.
Yeah.
I don't think we're using all of Salem. Salem, we're using 845, 920, and 1034. And that's
what I
all in
was wondering.
2026, but enrollment capacity is 1,100. So could we, for a short term,
Split Salem as pre-K,
well, it can't be pre-KK 4-5 because we have the issue right now there that it's not large enough.
so
But-
we keep
But
Mainville
PK,
open. I'm just raising an issue. I'm
That's all right.
looking at
could
the
just be
numbers.
PK at Salem. So that's
Part of looking at Salem,
someplace.
making it a more than a 2 grade level configuration as far as the way the backside of that building is kind of cut up with, there's a computer lab on the backside, there's some small offices that are kind of unfinished. We have some interior storage rooms that don't have any windows that were, when it was a 5/8, used as classrooms. So I would think if we could get to a 2 grade level configuration, there could be some internal revamping of those spaces to better support what's going on there. So if you look at 800 or 850 kids in a 2 grade level configuration, you would have enough growth to use that site through this cycle if we could figure out how to.
Well, my thinking is twofold. My first one is that we know we have to add additional spaces because our enrollment is growing. With that said, if we shut down buildings and then want to build new buildings, people are going to look at this and say, what are you doing? You know, you're just moving to a new building. You've not solved the problem. It's not, in my mind, closing these buildings does not have to be a priority. They're being utilized now, kids are being educated in them now. Yes, we have operating dollars going out to them, but we also know there's gonna be a portion of that going out to them even when they're empty. My point being is there any way that we can look at the plan that's in front of us and instead of spending all of our dollars on these things here, is there, we take 10% from each one, I don't know, 10% from each one, it gives us $6 million to put into Salem, that's what I'm saying. That way Salem gets a facelift, it gets, we break some dollars loose and do some of the things that need to be done there to get us a little farther down the road. I mean, I'm just asking.
Well, let me ask, one of the things, if it's $265 a square foot, and if you can save 10% on that and just get $26 a square foot,
Mhm.
right? We could
10%, that's 6
find a
million.
way to get
6.5.
Christie to work, when she works with the construction, and you can get for, as we said, a lot of what we're talking about here is if we go with Randy's route, there's some renovation dollars, but we're talking about additions more than we are brand new buildings, except for one.
Except for one.
And Mark and I have been looking at this for a long time, and so one of the things that I struggle a lot with regards to the information I get from Christie sometimes is, you don't wanna do OFCC, cause, oh my God, you have so many hoops to jump through, and people are gonna charge you a premium because you're making them jump through those hoops. Well, if I say, no problem, I'm not gonna jump through those hoops, we're gonna go ahead and finance this ourselves, then in my mind, there should be some cost savings there. I should not be paying OFCC dollars for a non-OFCC project, if what you're telling me is, you don't wanna go that route, because the builders are gonna charge you a premium. So if I'm not going that route, I shouldn't be paying the premium. And I'm willing to say, okay, if generally speaking, can you save on $265 a square foot, can you save $26 a square foot? It gets you your $6 million that you would need to put into whatever you wanted to put it. It's like Terry said, I would rather her come in and say to me, it's gonna cost you $265 a square foot, and at the end of the day, it costs us $230. And you go, oh man, she just saved us $35 a square foot, we can take that money and put it wherever we want. As opposed to her come in and say, hey, look, it's gonna cost you $230 a square foot, and then at the end of the day, she goes, oh, by the way, it's $265. So,
Yeah,
You know,
it would be $238 a square foot that you would be asking for. So.
you know,
We did that on this building, with a staircase.
I'm just, if you're trying to, with what you're trying to do, 'cause that was what, the part I wasn't understanding was,
$120,000.
are we gonna try to get it from other places? But really, what we're trying to decide is, how can we stretch our 64.925 to somehow include some money to renovate Salem?
Well, I think it does a couple of things. Number one, we don't touch those two buildings, so any of those folks that are in those buildings aren't gonna vote against it. Or at least they don't have a reason to vote against it, because you're not closing their school, number one. Number two, we gotta add operating cost onto this. We know what the operating costs are for these. We have to add this on top of that. And if we're trying to move ahead and look at things down the road, we have to be able to sell. And the problem, I mean, the first thing that jumps out at me is when you say, we're gonna add 1,000 new seats, and I'm gonna look at you and go, yeah, but 65% of them are just kids moving from that chair to this chair. I've just spent $16 million giving kids brand new chairs. Now, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but that's really the truth.
So there's a difference of 1,250 kids, am I looking
Yes,
at the right
that's
number?
right.
Yes.
So 1,250 new seats
Right.
is what we're
What we're
creating,
paying.
Is what
without
we're-
the 600.
Is what we're creating, right.
Okay,
And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say this
That's-
again, I'm gonna make the argument that you're adding about 250 at the high school too. 'Cause
okay,
that-
so it's gonna, yeah, so you're more than
And like, again, it's not gonna skew your numbers a ton, but you're adding about,
1,500 seats.
you know, to use Randy's numbers, you're adding between 1,250 and 1,500 seats to be,
Yeah.
Somewhere thereabouts, right. And my point being is that, what is the hurry to shut the buildings down and to shift the kids into the new ones? What is the hurry at this point?
Well, I think when you were looking at, before we walked in here tonight, you were looking at, the plan was to try to build 2 new buildings
Right.
and consolidate your footprint.
Right,
Yeah.
Now that we know
Now
our
we're not
budget is
doing that.
constrained, you're gonna be able to build 1 new building now,
Right.
and 1 new building, we hope, later. So you're still doing new building, you put one off, and that one, the choice on that one is to put the high school off, which was a lot of our discussion last time anyway,
Anyway,
which
right.
was, okay, some of us, if you don't like doing 2 high schools now and taking your medicine to the tune of $140 million on the front end, your only option is to then do 1 building. Well, this constraint made that decision for us.
right.
We didn't have to make it on our own, and so,
Well, would we be opposed, let me present it this way, would we be opposed in massaging some of these numbers here to free up some dollars for Salem?
I guess my question is, are you going to then you're gonna have an open Mainville Elementary with kids in it,
Mhm.
you're gonna have an open Butlerville Elementary with kids in it,
Mhm.
and you're gonna have an open new elementary with kids in it, so we're
Mhm.
still gonna have 3 elementary schools,
Yeah.
right? Because we're not talking about not building this new elementary.
Right, no, you're right, no.
Right.
So,
So
but
what are we not
then
doing?
we have too many then, because we're adding the additions here, we can't do that.
What are we
don't
not doing
want
is
that.
my question. We're
Well,
not gonna
You
expand
do it
it.
over, man, you just want to
And
sharpen
you're
your
not-
pencil, right?
No, you could still do all those things. What I'm saying is instead of expanding them to, as big as they are, don't expand them as big and get some of those dollars back and put into Salem.
I think we need to find the money to put into Salem. I agree with you on that, Randy. I just don't know that keeping those buildings open does what we want. Because to me, you know, it's like the old, driving that old car. Eventually, you have to just say, I put enough money into this bomb and I'm getting rid of it. I need to move and get something new.
I understand that 100%.
can't-
But here's the question I'm asking right now. There's 650 students in these two buildings. And right now, to take care of those 650 students is over $16 million. So what we're saying is that Butlerville and Mainville cost us more than $16 million to keep them open.
Well, I think you
And
might,
that's-
you might
that's-
make an
I think
argument
that's-
that
yeah.
in perpetuity, it might, because you're getting a brand new
What
school.
do you mean in perpetuity?
Well, if
Those
you-
buildings aren't gonna fall down. Those buildings have been here 100 years. They're not gonna fall down in the next 10 years.
Right, but we would eventually divest ourselves of those two
Right.
buildings,
When,
eventually.
well, when you say divest yourself, but you're not saying that the building is no
Well,
longer.
I mean, go back and said, you would either divest yourself or you're gonna try to repurpose them, because that's what we've been discussing, is how can we repurpose
I agree.
Mainville and Butlerville, so that we
I
can
agree.
keep them as our assets, but use them differently.
And we could do that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever
Could.
it might be, but my point being is that this plan that we have in front of us addresses everything that we need with one exception, and that's Salem.
Okay, but let me ask you this, if we would, if, let's say, the new building, you said bring it down to, what'd you say, 600?
I said 700, but I mean, the number's arbitrary.
So the 150 is not a grade level, so what do we do? That's not a good number, because you can't just move 150 kids from a building. So we have to get it in chunks of what a grade level would be.
Well,
Or-
yeah, but then
Well, see,
you
but you don't know
still
what the
have-
grade
you
level's
still
gonna be.
have,
Well, let's look at that, okay? If we have Mainville remaining open and Butlerville remaining open, those right now are first and second grade buildings.
okay.
If we build a new elementary of some size, that is gonna serve that same set of grade levels, I've now got a new elementary building serving this, that's new, and I have two old or maturing elementary buildings.
They're old buildings.
So, who goes in the new building and who stays in the old building? So that's part of the dynamic, at least from a marketing.
Oh, no,
point of view.
you're right, you're 100% right.
You know, as I look at, if we're moving the junior high to a 3 grade level configuration, when you look at that addition, you wanna make sure that when you make that addition there, that is gonna be able to house those 3 grade levels until you get through to that 1B,
Until you get into high
where
school.
OSCC is in here, so you can't really undersize that addition.
Right.
And be assured that you're gonna be able to support 3 grade levels there for the time that you need.
Because we're already at some of those grades pretty close to 400 now.
Right.
I know the fourth grade is
grade is
Anna's grade, and
yeah.
they're already over 400.
We are.
Abby's grade is 8th grade, and they're 380 or whatever.
Yeah.
So let's just say you're at, you're at 400 now, and you put 3 grades, you need room for 1,200. If you get to 450, you get to where you got 50 more kids at grade level, you've maxed out that junior high with the
Right.
600
Right.
student addition that we're putting on there pretty quick.
So
I'm not
that-
opposed to us having more seat capacity, but I'll share a story with you, which is, my father-in-law gave me a 25-year-old John Deere lawnmower 10 years back, and the thing will run forever, but every year I have to put $500 in it, take it up to Tobler's in town, and he puts $500 in that, and after 5 years of doing that, I went, oh crap, I've dumped $2,500 into this 25-year-old John Deere mower, then it will run forever, and it will mow my grass just fine. But I haven't brought myself to go over to Lebanon and put it to bed and get a new lawnmower, because I think to myself, I can take the $300 hit, that's not a big deal, but man, I just don't wanna spend $3,000 on a brand new John Deere lawnmower. So, I get where you're coming from, and eventually I'm gonna have to say to myself, you're a moron, because you've dumped $3,000 into this 26-year-old lawnmower, and in the meantime, I could have been mowing my grass and paid for the brand new
Well,
mower.
that's interesting that you use that analogy, because in manufacturing, the analogy now is happening that people are looking for old iron. And when I say old iron, they're looking for old machines. You know why? Because the old machine will run 30 years, 40, 50 years. I mean, I've run machines that have probably been 70, 80 years old. And the new machine, I go out and I drop $150,000 on, after 6 years, it can't hold tolerances, it can't do this, it can't do that, because it wasn't built like the one 70 years ago. So, I understand what you're saying, I understand, but I just look at it from this perspective. Of all of our buildings, the old buildings, the newest of the old buildings is what?
It's like,
And what's the one we're having the most problems with? So the question you ask yourself is, at the end of the day, is it really the smart move? Is it really the smart move? Will this building be standing here 100 years from now? I mean, I don't know. But my point being is that that's what we have to look at. We have to look at it from that standpoint.
Or if you're
Salem-
asking me which one of the three that you would replace, the one you would replace in that scenario is you would look at Salem first, right? If you're gonna replace one, so I guess it comes back to you wanna dump $6 million into the one that maybe is the one you should replace.
Well, I'm just saying, we're saying we're gonna use it.
question.
We're saying we're gonna use it.
And
You
this-
can replace Salem if you're keeping Mainville and Butlerville aligned with the seats. You can build a school behind it. Take it off.
And not put a new elementary on,
On
For-
44 acres.
You had to build this one out more than the 400.
so, I mean, so you would do let's say 500 or 600 here. Not, 450's not gonna cut it, so you're gonna do 600 to 700 here. Keep Salem, or put some money into Mainville and Butlerville to upgrade them. Build the new elementary instead of on the 44 acres, build the new still do a new elementary, but do it on that
Do
site.
it on Salem.
And then take Salem down, which was in the original plan anyway.
I think you're gonna have to look at cost and seats.
Right,
Let me ask this
Sounds like
question.
because what we're talking about is,
So without the high school.
we're talking about going from 850 seats to, I'm asking, in that scenario, I think what Greg's saying is you might be over your $64.9 million.
We build it accordingly. So you,
I don't want you to build a really small elementary.
It doesn't
What-
make
She said you
sense
go up
long
to 1,000
term.
and keep it online, didn't she?
Right,
Yeah.
she said we could go to 1,000 and go 2-story. And then once you tore the existing Salem down, you would still then have room to add an addition there if you
Right.
needed to, when you comes time for your OFCC to do your high school, you could maybe then, if you needed it. I think there's a tipping point in when you throw good money after bad, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
I agree with you
Because I
100%.
don't know where that tipping point is either. Just like I haven't figured out to go over and get a new lawnmower yet, because I'd rather take the slow bleed than to go over and bite the bullet all at once. So I don't know where the tipping point is.
Oh, no, I
on those.
agree with you 100%.
Get the new tractor.
I gotta run that by.
All right, let me
Okay, go ahead.
ask this question. Okay, with this plan, we have enough housing for all of our kids, and the 200 that we're gonna get every year from now on, all right?
Out to about,
So about
2023.
2023.
Okay,
2000, so about 5 years.
all right, so if we keep Mara, or if we keep Mainville and Butlerville open and reduce the size of one of these, and put money into Salem, what is gonna be our best plan? And this is what we've talked about from day one. What will be our best plan or our easiest plan to sell?
No, I agree.
Because without the bond issue and the operating levy, we can throw this piece of paper away. I mean, that's the bottom line here. I don't know. I like this.
I do too.
I was not ready to support a levy building 2 new buildings.
No,
Because everybody I talk to, and I talk to old people every day, your mom and dad, and father, and father-in-law every day, they look at you like, I mean, not just those two, but everybody in their life, you people are nuts. I mean, you just passed an operating levy not 2 years ago. Your high school's not 17 years, or just now 17 years old. Without the levy, we're spinning our wheels. It's simple.
Oh, no, I agree.
I don't care what we do, because we know we can't go over 64. So if we could take 64.9 and stretch it as far as we want to, we can do whatever.
Right, what I'm saying is that by closing the two, Butlerville and Mainville, we are automatically taking a $16 million hit. And we only got $65 million. We're already taking a $16 million hit, right off the bat. And that's nothing. I mean, that's just closing those two schools down. We're 16 million in the hole, right there. We have gained nothing except Johnny was in a wooden seat here, and Johnny's in a brand-new seat here.
Well, we've gained 1,500 seats.
No, you haven't.
Yep.
No, you haven't.
No, not, you
No.
have for.
You just moved her from Mainville to here.
He's the, only a portion of this 65 million
Yeah,
is replacing seats that you're taking offline.
right. $16 million of that 65 million is doing nothing more than moving kids from one school building to another. And I'm saying, why don't we use that $16 million for something else? So, just my thought. If you guys don't like it, then I'm only one.
We can always, you can always talk with Christie, right, and say,
Right.
all right, give me a configuration that keeps those, let's look at what a configuration would be. Because we're not talking about not doing anything on here, right?
Right, no.
All we're talking about is, can we squeeze another $6 million?
And-
But hold on a second, it's gonna be a little more than six, because you're gonna have to not only put $6 million into Salem, you're gonna have to put some money into Butlerville and Mainville too.
Yeah, but we're not
Well,
talking
the
massive
other
amounts
piece
of
to
dollars.
this, what we need to do at Salem is probably of a nature that we're going to need swing space to be able to go in there, because what needs to be done at Salem isn't going to be able to be done during the summer.
During this, yeah.
So you're gonna have kind of a need to, when you renovate.
If that's the
say,
case,
if
then
you
I like-
renovate Salem.
I like Marla's idea, which is, why don't, if we're gonna build a new elementary here on Ford and Zor, why don't we put the new elementary there on that side and see if there's a way we can configure it that way and stay within our budget and have that building be on that side. We were sitting here tonight going, okay, once we take Salem offline and build a new high school
You don't
5
have-
years
yeah,
from now,
yeah, you
what are you
don't-
gonna do with that
Yeah.
40
What do you do with
acres?
that 40
And
acres?
it's like, oh, I don't
30,
know, it's too big for this, but it's not big enough for this, and it's not in the,
Yeah.
you know, maybe that is a good, and if one of our hangups was, hey man, I'm all for building a new elementary, but I don't really like the fact that it's gonna be right here, a mile from this one,
Mhm.
then maybe it is a little bit better sell to have it on that site and be able to,
They were using that.
and
Salem.
put some money into Salem now to get us until we can,
Until you can get to the
until we
new
get
building.
into the
To
new
get us for
one.
the next 3 years.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, that's $16 million right there that we could utilize. Well, a brand new,
Give me those numbers, how you got the 16 million, because I'm just not following.
okay, we'll
when you
take
keep
60,
saying that.
all right, take $65 million and you divide it by how many seats are you picking up here? 1,900, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you get 1,900, you subtract 1,900 into that 65 million,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Well, but
And,
Okay.
and then you multiply that times 650,
that's what I did, and I didn't come up with that.
what'd you come up with?
2.24.
No, it's got, well, if you look at this, you got 65 million, you're adding 600 here, 850, 450, so what is that, 850, 12, 13, 1,900,
Yeah.
so
See that?
65 million,
I'm not
69
seeing
million.
that, that's what I keep saying, I'm not seeing that.
Alright, 64, 9, right?
Mhm.
64, 9 divided by, and we're gaining 1,900
Okay,
equals $34,000 times, okay, what do we say?
650, I mean,
What did I say, it was 34,000?
It's 22 million.
What is it, Terry?
22, 211, 184.
22.
22 million.
22 million per seat is, I mean,
No,
for
22
the
million.
For the 650
650
seats.
seats.
If it's about 34 and some change per
Yeah.
seat, yeah, I was looking at 22 million some
22
change.
million. So it's 22 million, I thought 16 million. I just, here's all I did, I took the 600
I did what you did
students
earlier,
here,
Randy, you got the
and I said
57,000 per seat.
60,000, 15.9 million, that's what I did.
Okay, but, okay, so you're saying that's for that square footage,
Yeah,
but
I
we
just-
don't know that for sure.
No, I just took that number.
Okay.
But Terry's saying it's closer to 22 million, but
Okay.
that's all I'm saying, is that as we move forward on it, and Mike hit the nail on the head, we have to be able to sell it. If we aren't shutting the schools down, it takes those no votes there, and it sidelines that opposition. We're not not doing it, so it sidelines the opposition.
I don't think we're gonna lose the votes in Mainville, honestly, if we close Mainville.
No, I
We're
don't
not
think
gonna lose
so.
those votes. We're not.
And I don't think we've got any votes coming in Harlan if we
Those
do
people
or
like
don't.
new things.
Yeah, I don't think Mainville is a concern about that at all. I mean, I don't see that. Butlerville, I do
Okay.
see that.
I
That
think
is
the only
being a concern.
concern would be if we have an inequity at a grade
New and
level,
old.
or a couple of grade levels, where we have kids in new space that are in the same grade level with kids that are remaining.
I agree with that, I agree with that.
That's true.
But we are gonna have inequity because Salem is still online.
And that's, but every
But
kid.
everybody's
every
going
fourth
at
grade
4 and
level
5.
You wouldn't have all fourth and
Yeah.
fifth grade kids
So,
are
okay, well,
So what
experiencing
solves
that
the,
inequity.
what solves the inequity problem is to have
The
grade
grade
level,
levels.
have grade level
Yeah.
buildings. So that
Right.
Right.
instead of splitting kids by
Splitting
neighborhood,
them
And
up. Right.
Salem and
Right.
Butlerville by themselves are handling first and second grade right now, but they will not continue to handle
Not
first and
for long.
second grade. So when we look at the new elementary space, that is where we potentially get into that inequity, where
Okay,
if you
so-
build a new space that's housing,
so we like this plan then as
I like it as is personally.
is.
I can go back and talk to Christie
Well,
about
that's
the other
okay.
options,
No, that's all
about
right.
keeping the space open.
one of the things, I mean, I'd like to explore
You
whether or
like it
not
as
it's,
is?
our-
I
it's,
like,
I'm sorry.
I don't like the idea of shutting down Butlerville. That's my concern. I think Mainville will be fine. I still struggle with what we do with people in Harlan Township, because I think that's gonna be I don't think that they're all in support of the levy, and I don't think that matters. I think they're still our community. So for me, I don't like the piece about shutting Butlerville. I don't have a problem shutting Mainville, I really don't, because I think Mainville will be fine. But I would be more comfortable if we could.
Would you be, I'm just thinking out loud, leaving that building open, you have probably 80 or 90 kids attending it. If you drew attendance zones around that building, that
I
made
understand
sense.
that. I know, Greg, it doesn't make sense to me to
Would
keep it
the board
open.
be willing to leave that building open as a community building with 80 or 90 kids in it
I
at a
don't think
certain
that's
couple of
fiscally
grades?
responsible. No. I don't think that would be a good thing to do. But again, because I've lived there and because those people mean something to me, I feel like we're discarding them. It's a heart thing, maybe not my head, my heart is
Well, if
saying
we're
that.
gonna leave one of them, we should leave both of them.
Well, see,
open.
Mainville people, I think, will be fine, especially if we're using it as an elementary, and the elementary's gonna go here. I don't think Mainville's gonna care if they're on Foster, Mainville, or Zor. That's not gonna matter to them.
Correct.
And they're gonna be okay with a new building. All that is good. I think the only community we're not taking care of is Butlerville.
If we
And
took
we
the first levy out to 64 million, and we're,
Yeah, but they're
we
gonna
have,
do a new
how long
building.
before we're on to get
Butlerville
debt?
is.
Yeah.
But
Essentially, when
Mike,
you do that,
know Butlerville.
I know
It's
Butlerville.
just
we have
not
two
right.
options
It's
for
not
phase
right.
two, or phase
I
one and B
mean-
revenue income. We have to go
We have to
OSFC,
bite the bullet.
Bobby, you're
or
next.
those
I
lease
think we
purchase.
have to.
Because
What's
we're
your
not gonna pay
thought?
down
But
that
you
quick
had,
enough, I mean,
you
we
were
might
okay
build
with
an
everything
issue.
else on the plan?
Yeah, say we
Saving
take 4 or
money
5
somewhere
million
to
down, or
put into
10
Salem,
million down.
yes.
Oh, you wanna
That's
save
how we
money
build
to
an
put
issue
into
again,
Salem.
because
Okay.
our valuation went
Yeah,
up.
I'm okay
Yard
with
So that would
looking whether or not we wanna
increase our
actually
debt
put the
limit a little
elementary
bit,
at
where you're not
Salem.
gonna,
If we
you're not
can
gonna put 50
do the
million.
new elementary.
You won't have enough
And
space
stay
down.
within budget.
So
if
the only
we can
option we
put
have
it
is
there.
OSFC
So
or
we're
do a
gonna
lease
leave the
purchase.
elementary 4 and 5
Because
there
our
and
debt being an
building
issue,
elementary
it's just like right
there?
now with our
Both?
limitation, we only
I
had
think
22 million we
You
could put out
can't
there.
leave
That's what I
Salem
thought.
there if you build.
At 9%,
Right, so
but they
what
allowed
do
you
we
to
do
go
about
to
the
12%
You
when
build the building.
start doing the calculations.
You're taking 1,100.
But yeah, we're not gonna build an issue much at all, it's gonna have to be an OFC
But I
project.
don't know that we can do that. What are we gonna do with them?
You're building
I
1,000,
discussed that with
you
Eric
build
on the level.
1,000, 1,100 elementary, you're
They
just
said if his
grading
percentage
there.
wasn't so high, they wouldn't have done it.
So we're
Well,
building the.
not
we're
really,
building-
because
they
let's
need
look at it this way, if we have what we're
And
adding
he said
on here,
in the
we're adding 1900
bureaucracy and the
seats.
paperwork was a nightmare.
If we left
track of
Butlerville,
everything.
Mayville open, we truly are adding 1900
Stick
seats.
ourselves
Does
in
it,
the
does
end.
this,
Yeah,
If I took the 850 and I
but
put
we
it
have no option
behind
next time,
Salem,
because we won't have enough spread between
literally,
how
I
much
could
we owe
take
and what
Salem
we can
down,
issue.
and that puts 1,000 or
Unless our
1,100
valuation
of
went
those 1900
flying through the
seats
roof real fast, and I don't expect it to go that big.
into that, right?
No, because we have 2 grade levels
Well,
that are
I have
gonna utilize
1,100
Salem.
Salem, and I build an 1,100 building behind it, and then I demo Salem.
I've got a net gain
I've
of
got
zero.
zero, net
Right.
gain of zero.
Exactly. But it's the same thing I'm doing with the 650.
Yeah, it's a
putting it
wash,
in.
it's the same
Right.
thing.
It's a wash both ways, so.
So are you, what I'm hearing you say is that if we're gonna try to find some way to squeeze 10% and get $6 million to put into Salem, the intent would be to keep it open long-term once you invest that money into it.
not long-term,
I
it
mean,
would be gone in
Christie's saying
6.
that money would get you 10 more years.
Yeah, okay,
No,
yeah.
that's-
Is
that's-
that,
Say 10 years.
is that long-term, I guess? I guess it is.
For me, it is.
It probably is for a building.
Because we're talking about, we're talking about 17, and we're talking about being out building buildings and then being
At capacity.
full in 2000 and, you know,
23.
you know, you're gonna build the building and it's gonna be done in 20, and in 23, it's gonna be full already. So
Right.
if you can put money into a building and get 10 years out of it before it's bursting at the seams, to me, that's pretty long-term, the way we're growing right
Well,
now.
I think the way the configurations are, we have room to move those grade levels if we have to. So I don't think we're tying our hands. I think we're putting facilities where we need them and we are able to shuffle and do. So maybe if we are at capacity in fourth and fifth grade, there's a way to move the grades
Slides
around
in.
because the way the buildings are and where they are. That's gonna help us maybe get another 5 years out of it.
So Randy, tell me again, like, what you would cut down?
I don't know specifically, Bobby, but here's what my thought was. If we left Butlerville and Mainville online, we gained 650 seats on our 64.9 million.
Right.
Terry says around 22 million, but 15 to 20 million dollars. If we took and cut, I'm just making numbers up here, say instead of the 450 on the intermediate, you put 400, and instead of the new 850, you put 800, and instead of the 600, you put 300. You know, in other words, you're moving numbers around. You could still do the one at 600 and do the other, you know, you could still do it different ways, but my point being is instead of spending the entire 64.9 million, we would only spend 60 million on all these additions, and then took that additional 5 or 6 million that we could free up and put into Salem to help keep that online for about another 10 years.
And do we know how much the cost would be to keep Salem online for 10 years?
She said, what, 6
Well,
million?
she
wasn't
said
it?
6.8 million.
That's why I was thinking 6 million, that's the only reason. Yeah, 6.8 million, if we could free that up in here, in theory, we could keep Salem online another 10 years.
And in which case, if that's the plan, then you know you're not putting the elementary there, you have to put it somewhere else.
Somewhere
Right,
else.
right.
Right, that is correct.
Ford Road.
That's fine,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, all right.
Unless
How
we
many
can swap the
preschool
land.
students do we have right now?
122,
Oh,
122 maybe?
So could we just make Butlerville our pre-K building?
not handicapped. Can't.
What's it cost to make it
Yeah, we
handicap? You
can't.
got an elevator.
We need,
Well,
we
we're
would need to make it
limited on that.
handicapped.
We
First
can't
floor to
expand much, but
classrooms.
it was there last year.
Yeah.
I'm just
Just
saying it,
take
cause
it
our
upstairs.
we're talking, I mean, when the question Greg made is, do we all feel comfortable having 90 Harlan Butlerville kids in that building? And if our answer is no, and if the answer to inequity is to have grade levels, do we want to keep Butlerville online, but make that our preschool center, so that even if it costs some dollars to do it, so then you would not have the inequity of the Harlan Butlerville kids being out on that end, they would still come into a new elementary school, and you would just shift pre-K from here to out there and make that your preschool center, thinking in mind that you're gonna try to grow that program as we grow, to try to grow that program.
You couldn't grow it much out there.
You would have to
Because
look
there's
at
only
an
so many first
elevator
floor
because you
rooms.
would need to go to the second floor. I mean, we've got 6
Right.
sections now. We're looking at adding a 7th possibly next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, elevator-
If you're gonna
elevators
use
are
it and
really not that
repurpose it, what are you
expensive.
gonna use it for is the question. We've
Right.
talked about
You
making it a
got-
professional development center, we've talked about
You got
making it an online
With
school.
it in lunch.
You got 4 classrooms on the second floor, or
There's some
5?
pieces out there that
4. So there's about 10 classrooms out there. So if I have 7 sections of preschool,
I don't know that I like the idea of telling the people that live out there, and I certainly do not, obviously, that, you know,
that the rest will want.
no, not that, it's just that I have a hard time telling those people that your kids aren't as important as the rest of them. And while it might not come across that way, part of our job as the 5 of us is to say, every kid who lives, regardless if they
That's
live
right.
in the furthest reaches of Harlan, or they live in Village on the Green, they all should have access to the same opportunities regardless of where they live.
We all agree.
And if we keep that building open and just put the Harlan Butlerville kindergartners, first and second graders in there, those kids are at a distinct disadvantage from a program standpoint
They are.
because of the geography more than anything else. I don't mind to keep it open if we can put one centralized thing there so that, you know, once the preschool kids are there, and then once they hit kindergarten, they're back here to new learning facilities for whatever we're gonna do, I can live with that. How do you do specials out there for 90 kids? You have to hire a teacher and they're gonna have to drive out there, right? Cause you're not gonna be able to house a music teacher, a gym teacher, a art teacher.
We already do that now with, the first and second grade that's out there.
One thing I remember.
I think every kid is just as important as the rest regardless of what their address is.
Absolutely.
And I know all of you
We
do
all
too, I'm not
agree.
saying that, but as you keep those buildings open and those further reaches, that becomes more and more challenging as
It does.
you grow. And, but if you could make that your pre-K, if we could keep it open and invest some money into it and make it a nice pre-K center, you would get no pushback from me. I would be okay with that.
So closing Mainville, but using Butlerville as that.
I don't know, I don't know that there's money, you've been crunching the numbers tonight, is there money to put into Salem to $6 million is kind of what is there money then to put some money into Butlerville to make it a pre-K center, and then you got all these things that you wanna do à la carte, which ones are you gonna pick and actually be able to do
We
for what the money?
put a lot of money into Butlerville. It will need some tuck pointing and roof work, and maybe some HVAC replacement, because there's still an oil burner in the addition that's there. That probably is coming out to the end of its life. We already have replaced the
But if-
main
if-
heating unit with a rooftop unit, so.
If you make that pre-K out to Butlerville, all the people down here's gotta go all the way out to Butlerville.
They do it more. It's a
Well,
blessing, not, yeah.
it wasn't a great idea.
Right, but it worked, and I think like what Tony's saying, it'll show the people in Butlerville, we're not just putting everything out here and leaving them out in left field.
Yeah, but they're getting a new building.
Well, it's not
well-
by them though.
Because those kids are gonna still come into a renovated Salem site, if we do what we're talking about, so Salem or
And a
Butlerville,
new
those kids, will-
elementary,
and then they're gonna come
And
to
you
whatever
want
the
it?
new elementary
Okay.
is.
first, second,
Explain this to me one more time. The high school's gonna be 9 to 12, right?
Yes,
The existing junior high is gonna be 6, 7, and 8.
right.
yes.
Yes.
Existing Salem is gonna be 4, 5.
Correct.
This building's gonna be K,
Pre-K.
pre-K through 3.
Well, or PK
And-
one.
Or K through
Or
three.
K
Or
through
Or K through
If we
3.
move
If
the
we-
PK kids to Butlerville.
If we move
I'm
Butlerville.
not moving anybody. So the new building,
Would
So the
have
new-
K3.
K3,
So you would have kids in two different buildings from
K3.
K through 3. So
I have no problem.
No, I thought we said
Or
grade.
Greg said maybe we just
Or
do,
you could go
make them grade level
pre-K
configuration.
1 and a 2-3.
Yeah.
If you do it that way, it does help alleviate the.
Right.
We're all together for pre-K,
Yep.
and then we split them up into,
It's
you
not
live
a good
here and you live
idea.
here, so that's where you go to school, and then we merge them right back together again.
Not a
Right.
good
2
idea.
2 years later.
So I'd be
Not a
inclined to
good
try to
idea.
look in a plan to do a pre-K 1 and a 2-3
Yep,
Yes.
on these buildings.
yeah.
Especially if you're gonna be this close, and I said this earlier, if you're gonna have one elementary on one end of town and one on the other, okay, I get it, but if we're gonna build an elementary right here a mile up the
You
street,
think open them-
then I
open
would
for
be,
preschool is
and
a
I've
good
probably been the one
solution
who
to that.
likes, and I think we heard that people like their neighborhood elementaries during the,
See, I'm
but if
just-
they're
We're
gonna,
still
they're
gonna
not really gonna be neighborhood elementaries,
Still
then
need it.
But see,
it would be
we
better
can-
configure them that way, I think.
Don't let them right
The
away.
265 square foot, that's not in stone either, right?
No.
Right.
No, no.
Basically, I think what Christie needs is us to give her some direction on developing a more detailed cost-specific plan after we decide the direction we're gonna go. She'll get with,
Well, and I think we can do that tonight, because tonight, what we're looking at is, we are okay with the high school. We are okay with the junior high. We are okay with the new building, and we're also okay with the intermediate school. The only thing that comes into play that we're having the discussions on is, does it make sense to shut Butlerville and Mainville down and switch seats over, or can we break, in other words, look at some of these things, save some dollars to put into Salem?
Right.
Also, the cost for the utilities for the new building is not figured in there at all.
No, and no site work or anything of that nature, utilities and site work.
So we'd like to see if it behooves us to save that money on the Ford Road site and invest that money into the piece that's for sale across the street.
Right.
And try to get 90-some acres for what you got in your
In your
44.
utilities, right, yeah. And she said she was gonna talk to the civil engineer to see what his thoughts were, because two things are gonna come into play. Number one, traffic patterns, and then your utilities. And knowing the township, they're gonna try to stick us with what, if Mike had better friends down there, we could maybe
Mike
get a
has no
break.
friends.
He's got,
You gotta run for.
yeah, when are you gonna run? Are you running this next time?
Run for trustee.
Yeah, running,
Running
Mike for trustee.
Nobody.
And, okay, so I think I think we're at a point, Greg, where we can just kinda everybody stop, take a deep breath, that kinda thing, and figure out what we're gonna do next. And,
I'll get with Christie tomorrow and we'll go review all of this.
because I think 80% of it is, or
Yeah,
90% of it is there.
Yeah.
And if you look at, if we're saying 265 is high, just the money we're saving right there is money for renovating Salem.
I'm gonna be honest with you, 265 I don't think is high.
You do not think?
I do
Sounds
not
like it
think. You can't build a good house for under $150 to $175 a square foot. Now, we're talking commercial here.
She was very comfortable thinking that was high.
Well, she knows better than I do. I just know if you build a house right now, concrete now is $150 to $170 a yard, and it used to be about $100 a yard. I'm impressed, yeah.
If it's not, then we're spinning our wheels for nothing, because we're over to 64 million now.
Well, I think we can get her to drill down and look at that and get some more specific.
Well, and some of that is gonna be the big space areas, and, I'm talking about a house where there's a lot of walls, this, that, and the other
Sure.
thing she's probably looking at. Go ahead, Melinda.
I just have a question, so I have it clear on the minutes. I'm understanding that you're all in agreement on the elements of the plan that were presented.
Yeah.
I've heard,
Option 4, Phase 1A.
okay. Are you all in agreement with the closing or the not closing of the two buildings?
I don't think so.
I don't think we're all in agreement either way,
Okay,
Not yet.
not at this point.
so the elements of option 4, but not the closing of the two buildings?
Not the closing of the, right. All right,
I talked to Bill today about the auction
Yep.
process tomorrow. I should have all the paperwork on that in the next few days. There's an ad that has to be out 30 days before the auction. And then he will handle the auction. It'll be an open public bid where you come and you actually bid. You have a right to reject any and all offers.
so they're not gonna be sealed bids?
No.
Yeah, it's
So public, what are you gonna give us?
Do they do it?
And we can accept or
And you
reject?
can accept any or all bids.
Built and running, they can run.
Okay, well,
Is there a
let's
minimum?
say, yeah, I was gonna say, does it have to be the minimum?
He will basically want to say, he's kind of going with, the minimum bid is 10% under the value.
Okay.
Okay.
And let me ask this question, and you said we can accept or deny all or any bid?
Right.
Yes.
Even
There's
if
no
somebody
criteria?
came in and said, here is what you're asking, you could still reject it.
Really?
Yeah, but there has been an attorney general opinion on it, that is, if you do accept one of the bids, the attorney general stated that you should accept the highest bid at that point.
You would think.
Yeah, that
Why
makes
don't
sense.
we
If
know?
that makes sense.
Yeah, I would think it had to, okay.
And-
Okay.
But you can reject them all too.
And if you reject them all, then you can retain somebody to try to sell it, you can do whatever you want with it.
All right. We've come to some discussion, Greg's gonna get, so let me just recap what we're gonna do. Greg's gonna talk with Christie tomorrow to begin to put a little bit harder numbers on this, and some things, we're gonna talk about the utilities for the 44 acres. We will discuss, I'm sure we're gonna need at least one more session. In the meantime, Tony and I will get with the BAC to begin looking at millage for operating on these.
Would we have to
You
have
and I
a
are
good
going,
plan
you and
first?
I are Monday night at the library.
If we're leaving
And
two
yes,
buildings open? and
are we at
stuff?
the library, Melinda? I'm sorry.
So when are we having a meeting?
If we're leaving buildings open, that affects the operating costs.
It
so
would
there's
affect,
not-
yeah, we have to look at all that. We have to look at all the
So
options
can I ask
here.
a question? Are we all in agreement with the shutting of Mainville? Or are some of us opposed to that?
I'm not excited about it only because I would rather leave the seats there and get my money from my 65 million, to put into Salem.
I will tell you that I think those buildings will probably have to stay open for a period of time if the plan is to put money into Salem, because we are going to need swing space. And so.
That's my only thing.
So if we can come up with a plan, we may use one, probably the Mainville site, it makes sense, as swing space to rotate a
Kids
number of
out.
classes out of an area while they do
While they
the
do.
renovation.
That's a good point. That is an excellent point. So, but does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other?
Do we wanna plan a meeting or wait till you get back with some?
Why don't we
Our
hold
next
off,
meeting-
our next,
yeah.
next week we have a board meeting.
It's the 28th, is the
28th,
Yeah,
sorry,
28th,
next
week
week,
after
week following. So, next week
and
is
I think
Or a
the
couple
BAC
weeks,
is
Next
April
week.
10th.
canceled their.
canceled. They
Yeah,
canceled.
there'll be an April 10th meeting.
But Tony and I, Melinda, did you say we are in the
Their April
library?
meeting may cancel?
So Tony and I's listening session is Monday. Give me a cinnamon roll, I know Bobby will.
She won't.
I know Bobby will get me.
I don't have it down now.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Done.
Mr.
Second.
Nemish and Mr. Cremines. And Bobby said she wants to keep going. Roll call, please.
Mr. Deemish?
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice? Mr. Cremines?
Yes.
Thank you.